Okay. Shalom, everybody. Today we'll finish the halacha from yesterday about exercise. So we talked about a little bit in the questions, but here there's actually three different opinions why bicycles are forbidden, and then we'll also see a very interesting opinion about why it's allowed. So the later poskim agree that one may not ride a bicycle on Shabbat. Some maintain that the reason for this prohibition is the concern that one will travel outside the Tchum. So that's based on a Mishnah in Beitza, where if you leave the city limits because you're on your bicycle and you're not noticing where it ends, so you're not allowed to do that. While others say that the concern is that the bicycle will break and they will end up fixing it. I think it's more related to the wheels, like a flat tire, etc. But either way, and the Rabbi Melamed's opinion is actually a third. In fact, the main reason is that it is a weekday activity. That's why it's in this chapter and not in the chapter of Tikkun Kli, which we talked about, since people ride bicycles primarily to travel to work or to exercise. So there are some countries that are really known for it, like France and Holland, where everybody rides a bicycle, especially when they don't have money for gas, etc. But there's other places as well. Um, our uncle actually got into an accident, and that's why he had to stop working with his bicycle. It was not his fault at all. But in the comments, which we don't usually look at, the Ben Ish Chai, who was the chief rabbi in Baghdad in Iraq, a little over 100 years ago, so I'm guessing the bicycles were already prevalent in all kinds of areas in the world. He says that you are allowed to ride a bicycle on Shabbat. He explains, Rav Yosef Chaim explains that we need not be concerned that people will mistakenly conclude that one may ride in vehicles drawn by humans or animals. Furthermore, we do not have the right to enact new decrees. Um, Nevertheless, almost all poskim are stringent for the reasons mentioned above, and so it's just very interesting that he probably thought about all these other concerns and still concluded that we should not enact new decrees, which is a gigantic. Whoa, I do not know what just happened. A gigantic halachic debate because we make takanot all the time, so. Um, and most of the arguments are about adding things to prayers and whatever, but the rabbis have always added things or taken out things based on the needs of the community. So when so the next halacha talks about like an in-between situation. So the walk is now relaxing. It's not for exercise, but the question is where you are allowed to walk to. So even when one takes a relaxed walk, they may not walk to their fields or factory in order or store in order to plan out the work week. Doing so is included in the category of your affairs, which may not be addressed on Shabbat, as it says, if you honor it and do not go in your own way, nor look to your affairs in Yeshayahu 58, Isaiah. However, if it is not obvious that this intention is to plan their work, there is no prohibition. Therefore, one may take a Shabbat walk as long as onlookers cannot tell that he is looking over his fields. It is pious to avoid thinking about business on Shabbat altogether. But really, we can't control what people think about. It's just that's why the idea of getting yourself used to, that's why it's called pious as opposed to allowed or not allowed, because we can't really control your thoughts. But the Talmud tells us a story. I just couldn't find the exact source. But the way I remember it is that this man did mistakenly go to his vineyard and found that there was a breach in the fence, and he took it upon himself that once Shabbat is out, he will come back and fix the breach in the fence, and that is forbidden. And so when either he became aware that he made a mistake or somebody told him, um, the he decided that regardless of whatever happens, because he knows that it was wrong to say that and to decide that, he's not going to fix it no matter what. and a miracle happened, and in the place of that breach in the fence, there grew not a cypress tree, but a cypress plant, what we call capers. And in old days, pickled capers were a lot more expensive than what they are today. And so he was rewarded for keeping Shabbat. And I think that that's a good example. Miracles don't always happen, but just the idea that that way we can learn how to teach ourselves not to think about our business on Shabbat. Similarly, one who is building a house should not check the progress on Shabbat because it is obvious that he is planning his work or somebody else's, and one who intends to renovate or expand their home may not examine other projects if it is clear that he is planning the renovations. So too, when considering buying an apartment, may not check out apartments for sale on Shabbat. In contrast, when considering buying an apartment, may walk to a street where new apartments are being built, even though his intention is to look them over, as long as it looks like he is just out for a walk and he does not stop and scrutinize them. This way, he does not look like he is planning his purchases. If one is planning to buy an electrical appliance, he may window shop at appliance stores while walking on the street. However, he should not look at prices because, again, that is very clear that that's the business. In addition, it is pious to avoid thinking about these matters at all on Shabbat. I'm not sure. This story is definitely not politically correct, but in the old days when World Series was on Yantev and different stores in downtown large cities had TVs playing in their windows, it was very obvious that the people going to shul or coming back from shul were stopping there to see what the score was. That is not that is not what what is recommended on Shabbat. That's not the right way. Shabbat or Yantiv. Toward the end of Shabbat, one may not walk to the edge of the Tchum in order to hire workers as soon as after Shabbat as possible. Similarly, one may not go to his field, store, or factory at the time at that time so that he can begin work immediately after Shabbat, since it is clear that he is going there on Shabbat in order to work afterward. In effect, he is dealing with his weekday affairs on Shabbat. However, if it is not clear that this is the reason he is going there, as is the case, for example, if many people take walks there, or if the shul is right across the street, then he may walk there on Shabbat, even if he intends to hire workers or begin his work immediately afterward. This is because the prohibition only applies when it is clear that he is going for a mundane purpose. So, as we are reading the second set of the Ten Commandments in this Shabbat, I think the biggest change in the Ten Commandments is about Shabbat, where in Yitro, it says that the reason for keeping Shabbat is because Hashem rested on the seventh day, and that He took us out of Egypt in order for us to be a nation that observes the Shabbat and rests as Hashem did. In this week's Torah portion, it says Leman yanuach avdecha v'amatcha kamocha, that the concentration is more social. It's not so much about our beliefs; it's about the fact that we are commanded not only to rest on Shabbat, but also to allow our workers and our animals to rest on Shabbat, as we've been learning for the last few weeks. And so I think that's a great connection to this idea where our affairs on Shabbat should not be the same affairs as the weekdays. It actually says that you should work for 6 days. Some people they don't count it maybe as one of the 613 commandments, but it's basically good instruction that you do work for the 6 days of the week or 5, but that on Shabbat you rest. And so to contrast it's basically only by working the 6 days of the week then you show that you're resting on Shabbat. If you are lazy, God forbid, or if you have so much money that you don't need to work, the Torah still gives instruction to do some kind of work during the week in order for it to be differentiated from the Holy Shabbat and to cherish that amazing gift from Hashem. So we'll stop here and we'll open up for questions.